Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is our February onX Hunt 101 Masterclass. My name is Jack. I'm going to be kind of leading our little journey. I'm joined by Tori.
It's me.
Tori works in our customer support department. I work in our marketing side. So between the two of us, we pretty much know everything that goes on around this place.
It's very true.
Couple housekeeping items while we wait for everybody else to join in. Your audio and video are turned off, so don't worry if you've got kids or dogs or something making noise in the background. We can't hear or see you. We do have two folks from our customer support team answering questions. So down on the bottom of your screen, at least if you're on a computer, there's a Q&A box. Click on that, open it up. That's the best place to ask questions. If you use the chat feature, it's a little bit harder for us to keep track of them, so it may get lost in there. We'll do our best, but if you have a question you need answered, the Q&A box is the best. We will also be doing a giveaway at the end of the class. We're giving away some onX Hunt t-shirts, ones that you can't buy, you can only be given them. So stick around for that. And if you're not able to stay for the whole class or you have to be in and out or something, we will record this class and it will be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Depends how fast YouTube can get it uploaded, usually mid-morning sometime. You'll also get an email tomorrow night, just like a follow-up email with the link to that if you want to watch it for future reference or send it to a friend or something.
I was going to say, if you have questions too that are more specific to you, like you're having some account questions, billing questions, or something that seems to be just maybe your issue, shoot us an email, help@onxmaps.com, and we'll take care of that tomorrow, and we'll get in touch with you. So yeah, anything specific, help@onxmaps.com. But just general information you think everybody would want to know about, use that Q&A spot for sure.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Well, I think, yeah, looks like we got a bunch of folks in here. So let's roll into it. Kind of what we're going to talk about today. We'll discuss the different membership levels of onX. You have your basic membership, your premium membership, your elite membership. We'll talk about some of the differences of those and what they each get you. We'll talk about the onX Hunt app, which is what most people are familiar with. So the app on your phone, we'll go over a lot of the features of that, from layers, offline maps, tools, things like that. We'll also jump over to the web map, which is on your computer, and show you how to get into that, what that looks like, and why you'd use one over the other. And then with any time remaining, we'll do some live Q&A, and of course, we'll do that giveaway towards the end. So I am going to stop sharing and pull up my phone screen here. Give me one moment while I get that switched over.
Did I tell you that I've been collecting a lot of my magazines lately?
Go on.
You could say I got a lot of issues. Yeah, I knew you'd like that.
It's kind of who Tori is around the office, our resident dad joke aficionado. All right, so here is my onX
Close us up.
map. Let me get rid of us on the screen there. Awesome. So this is on my phone. I'm on an iPhone. If you're on an Android, some things may look a little bit different. We'll kind of touch on those as they come up. But so this is an iPhone 11 right here. This is once I'm logged in to the app, I pull it up, I put in my email address and my password. Again, if you're having trouble with logging in or something, email help@onxmaps.com. That will allow our team to pull up your info and get you squared away. But diving into the map here, the first thing you might notice is this blue dot in the middle. That is my location. So that's how I know where I'm standing. If your blue dot is not showing up, like, let me just move the map away. No blue dot on the map. I don't know where I am. In the lower right-hand corner, that button that looks like a crosshair, that's what you're going to tap. You see it turned blue and it swings the map over to my location. If you tap that button and it gives you some sort of message like location services not enabled or permission denied, something along those lines, that means you didn't give onX Hunt, didn't give the app permission to access your phone's location. We have to have that permission to be able to show you on the map. So if you get that, you'll want to go into your settings and turn that on so that we can show you where you are on the map there. If I tap that button one more time, you see it turns to an arrow now and my map spun around. And if I move it, let me get it out of the way here so you can, it's kind of tough to see with those waypoints there. I guess the waypoints rotate with it too. I should have thought of that.
Yeah.
But you see there's a little bit of like a cone or a flashlight that comes off my dot there. That's showing the location that I'm facing. So I'll hold it up so you can kind of see it here. As I turn my phone, the map turns with me. So this is nice for when I'm walking down a trail and I want to be able to follow it and see what lies ahead. If I'm, if you're driving, maybe have a co-pilot or somebody else do it, or, have it up on your dash so that you're not driving with one hand, be safe there. But if you're riding along or if you're walking, certainly, that's the way you can easily tell what's on my left, what's on my right. I need to take the left fork or the middle fork or whatever. It's a lot
Takes
better.
the guesswork out of it. It's super nice.
Right. Versus if it's always north and I'm driving south, and then I got to be like, all right, so this side of the road is this and this is this.
Right.
Just makes it super slick. Kind of like what you have in your car. And speaking of cars, if you do have a head unit in your car that has Apple CarPlay, it's compatible. You can hook your phone up to it and plug in. And that's kind of the way to do it while you're driving. If you have one of those vehicles, if you're an Android person, that is coming up soon. We don't really dive into that in this session, partly because it's a little bit beyond a 101, but also because we're in an office and not a car.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
So a little bit tough to do. Also, my vehicle's 18 years old, so it does not have one of those.
It's right above the
in
tape
it.
deck.
I don't have a tape deck in my CD player though.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's
Well,
pretty sweet,
yeah, that going for you.
which is nice. All right, so that's your location dot. That's your compass. To get it back to north being up, this compass in the top right corner, right here, you can see my little highlighter, rotates the map back to north being up. Next thing to talk about is our layers. This is kind of the bread and butter, the meat of onX. We got bread and butter and meat. We got ourselves a meal.
Yeah.
This is what people buy onX for, right? Is the layers, the information that you can layer onto the map. When you open that up, you should see at least one state there. It's probably going to be the state you chose when you set up your account or when you bought a membership. I have Montana. We're located at the home office in Missoula, Montana here. If I open up that Montana folder, I just clicked on it there, that expands it. I'm going to drag this menu up so that I can see the layers available. You should see things like private lands, government lands, and hunting districts. Those are going to be pretty much across the board. I think we maybe have one state that doesn't have units. I think we just added some in Indiana that previously didn't. I think Illinois is the only state that we don't have some sort of district because their deer hunting units are all by county.
All by county, yeah.
And yours may say something different than hunting districts. It may say hunt zones, game management units, hunt areas. Every state calls them something different, but that's your, your zones, your districts there. If your layers are turned off, like if you're saying, man, I'm not seeing private lands, I'm not seeing the public lands on my map. First thing to do is to check that you have those layers turned on. It's kind of easy to turn them off by accident. You've just got this little slider button here, turn them back on, and then they'll show on your map.
Can you go back one screen for us, Jack? One quick way to kind of take to be able to see that too, is when you first click on hunt layers, go ahead and click on that. So you'll see a little red, it'll say, like you can see it says Montana, 3 of 9 layers turned on. So if you are seeing 0 of 9, you just don't have any layers turned on. So that's an easy way to just kind of take a quick, glance at what's on.
It'll kind of look, if you see Canada there, I have none of those turned on.
All
See how
grayed
it's a
out,
little
yeah.
darker, a little grayed out. That gives you an indication there. So if we go back into Montana, you see with hunting districts, this one looks a little bit different. I have this indicator here showing me that there are 16 sub layers. This is important because many different states break their units up into different, or break the units up by different species. So Montana, a lot of Western states, especially where they have kind of more species, at least for big game, we've got antelope, we've got bighorn sheep, bison, black bear, deer, elk, and lion is what's chosen by default. I believe deer is chosen by default in just about every state.
Mhm.
I can't think of any off the top of my head where it's not. At least if you have a deer specific one, some states don't. If I want to change it to, my next hunt is going to be turkey and bear in April, I can change it to bear. And I can just zoom out a little bit.
And one thing that's good to know is you can only have one GMU layer on a time. So you wouldn't be able to have bear and deer, elk, lion
Right.
here in Montana. So it's going to be one unit at a time.
So as I zoom out, you can kind of see what the bear units look like in Montana. If I would switch that to deer, elk, lion, it would look different. We always hear from people in Wyoming this time of year and in the fall, because Wyoming breaks their units up by species more than any other state. So they have mule deer units, they have elk units, they have pronghorn units, they have sheep units, they have goat units, right? And they're all different. So we sometimes hear from people like, man, your boundaries are all off. They don't match what I have in my Wyoming Game and Fish booklet or on their website. It's because the species is different. Mule deer is by default in Wyoming. If you're going on a pronghorn hunt, you just want to go in again to the map layers, go into the state and change that sublayer. Couple other ones to mention real quick. Possible access. This is a layer we have for every state. It's private lands that may allow public access. That's why it's called possible access. These are going to be primarily timber company lands and nonprofit type organizations like the Nature Conservancy, a local land trust, something like that. So they're private lands, but a lot of the timber companies, for example, allow public access. They allow public hunting, fishing, sometimes camping. So it's a way for you to see, this is a spot we may be able to go to. You do want to do your homework and look at, all right, what is allowed here? Sometimes it's just hunting, no camping, no motor vehicle use. Sometimes it is camping and fishing and everything. So it's incumbent on you to kind of figure out, all right, I'm going to this Weyerhaeuser land. What do they allow? What don't they?
Yeah, Jack, it's a really good point. I mean, nowhere are we going to say you can or cannot go. I mean, we're a great reference, but you do want to make sure that you're following your local laws there too. So yeah.
Yeah, that's something we get a question on government lands too once in a while, like, hey, this is government lands. Does this mean I can hunt there? Oftentimes, yes, but we're not going to say, yep, absolutely go. Partly because, I mean, Yellowstone National Park is public land.
Right.
Don't go hunting there.
Yeah.
You might go once and then you're going to get some trouble.
I've talked to a lot of kind of new people who are like, well, these are wrong because it's got my city in this hunting unit. You're saying you can hunt here. Well, no, you can't hunt inside city limits, but you do fall within that hunt unit.
Right.
So yeah,
you may have an urban hunt in your area.
Maybe,
Sometimes you can. But there's a lot of government lands, a lot of military installations that don't allow hunting, national parks. The White House is listed as public because it is.
Right.
It's government land. You're probably not gonna be able to hunt there.
Right.
Yeah,
so there's a park right down the road. You
Right.
can hunt there exactly one time, and then you're all done.
town deer in Missoula.
Oh yeah.
You can hunt some of the town deer here.
Yeah.
So that's government lands, possible access. The last one I want to mention under state is our block management layer. Your state's going to be called something else if you have this. This is Montana's walk-in access program.
Or access, yes. I'm trying to think.
Some states have access, yes. Yeah. There's walk-in hunting access or WIHA in Kansas. North Dakota's plots, public land open to sportsmen. Some states it's just WIA, walk-in access. I think there's, for some reason I have like 30 states, I think is the number in my head that have some form of this program. It kind of started with states in the West, where you have these big ranches and big landowners where they'll say, yep, I'm going to allow some form of public access here in exchange for some states. I think they get a little bit of a break on their taxes. I know Wisconsin's is like that with their forest tax law. If you have forest land that you allow to open up, some states it's like in Montana, it's per hunter day. I think it's $13.
I couldn't tell you.
For however many people, sign into the booklet or put their slip in the box, they get a payment. Every state's a little bit different, but that's something to check out because that's another great way to get access, especially if you're in an area that doesn't have a lot of public land, or, sometimes those places are overlooked.
Right.
Because people kind of know where the national forest is, where the BLM land is. That's typically signed, if you don't have onX, people still know where it is. Those block management areas or walk-in areas, sometimes a little overlooked, a little bit less traveled, and a lot of times it's agricultural land. That can be great hunting for pheasants, ducks, deer, everything likes to eat alfalfa and
Right.
corn and soybeans. So that's our state layers. We're going to go down to a couple other ones. I did have a few questions on Canada people sent in. This is pretty new. We have Canada layers. This is, you have to be an elite member to get that. So that's one of the differences in the membership. If you're a basic member, you basically have access to the hunting units for states. You don't have access to the public and private lands. Those require a subscription. If you have a premium membership, you have access to one state, like you saw Montana there, we had one state. If you're elite, you have all 50 states plus Canada. So Canada is new. We're continually adding more information to this, but we have, well, I guess I should back up. We don't break Canada down into provinces and territories. We have all the data for the country. You turn it on or off. So it turns on for British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, everybody. I skipped over Manitoba there. Sorry, Manitobans. I've been to your province. It's lovely. We have parcel lines for some provinces. Canada's a little bit of a different animal than the United States as far as how their information is available to the public. So some provinces were able to get some ownership data more often. We have the parcel lines. We don't have it everywhere, but we're trying to get more. Again, we've just started pulling in Canada data the last few months.
Right.
So we're always adding more, but we've got different hunt zones, outfitting areas, things like that. So
It's building, which is great.
Yep.
And I mean, there are times where maybe you're looking at the map and your private ownership layer is turned on, but you're still not seeing something. I know like Whitman County in Washington
Yep.
is one where we just don't currently have that data in our system, and we don't gain anything by not having information like that. So, in a perfect world, we have 100% coverage everywhere, but it just may be that that's an area that you don't have coverage. So if you're ever seeing you're having some troubles, you're got the layers turned on, you're signed in, and you're still not seeing, shoot us an email, help@onxmaps.com. We can double check. It's always helpful to let us know like what county, if you know the county, what you're looking at. That way we can, pass that on and, figure it out for you.
Yeah, there's some counties, typically they're rural counties with less funding is typically the reason. It costs money to build a digital parcel data set and distribute it and all that. Some counties have more funding than others. So there's still some counties in the US. There's 3,100 counties, boroughs, and parishes across the country. And we're using the terminology county. If you're in Louisiana, it's parishes. If you're in Alaska, it's boroughs. 48 states use counties, so that's what we're going to use. Some states, the Dakotas have some, Colorado, New Mexico, Whitman County, Washington.
Parts of Utah.
Parts of Utah. I think there's some in Arizona. UP and Michigan, they've been getting better. They've added a lot to the UP. There's still a few counties that we don't have the data for. As soon as they get it, we'll get it.
I remember when I started, we had like just a couple counties in Texas. Like most of Texas was barren.
I think there's maybe one.
I think there was one county in the UP and it was only part of it.
Yeah.
So it's so cool to see us like gain more and more information and fill those holes. So yeah, it's awesome.
And speaking of that private data, if you click on the map or tap on the map, we use the terminology querying the map to do a query. This card pulls up, and that's how you can find out the ownership. Here it's an LLC. It might show, John Smith or John and Jane Smith, whoever. It's going to give you the tax address. So that is the address where they get their mail.
If we have it.
If we have it,
Right.
Some counties either don't have it or some don't make it publicly available. Everyone's kind of got different processes. But that is not the address of the property. That's an important point. Sometimes people will pull up the tax address and they want to plug it into like Google Maps to get the directions to that place. Sometimes the tax address and the street address are the same. But if you're going, especially in rural areas, farmland, things like that, a lot of times people aren't living on the
Right.
farm. So that's the area, that's where they get their mail. So if you wanted to send a letter to somebody, that would be a good place to send it to, because that's where they get their taxes sent to. But that distinction there, I wanted to point out. You're also going to get the county and the acreage. Again, this is one, if we have the data available to us from the county, we're going to put the acreage in there. Other things you see in there, this area is in Missoula, so we have a kind of a restricted hunting area. You may or may not see that. Our sunrise and sunset zone, so for states that have different start and end times based on how far east or west you are. You have your hunt unit. You see I had black bear hunting selected earlier. I changed it to black bear. That's why that's showing there. And then you can also get some weather information in there. Across the top here, if I want to dig a little deeper, the hunt unit, this is kind of this is almost beyond a 101, but this is super cool. This is how I often get to our regulations.
100%.
So if I'm looking at, hey man, what's the rules in this unit? For bear, maybe not as important, but for some, especially in Montana, we're pretty complicated. So I might be in this unit, and for deer hunting, I can shoot a whitetail buck or a whitetail doe, but not a mule deer buck or doe. I can go across the river or across the street, and I can shoot a whitetail buck, a whitetail doe, and a mule deer buck. They're all kind of different. They've been doing work to simplify it, so it has gotten a little easier. But if you're wondering, hey, what are the regs for this unit? I'll just click right there, and it brings me to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, or the DNR's website.
Yeah, super helpful, I think.
So much easier to find, brings you right to those PDFs, so you can look that up. So that's cool there. You can also pull up the weather here. So if I move over, I use this for sunrise and sunset all the time. That's what I use it for the most. We've also got moon phase. We've also got an extended forecast. You can kind of see, we've also got the hourly forecast, so you can kind of plan out. So a lot of information just by tapping on the map. And that's what I recommend to a lot of people. We get that with the government lands layer. What's this color mean? What is green? What is blue? You'll get it. You know, the more you use it, you'll get used to it. Like, I know this green is Forest Service. I know this is city land here. I know this blue is state land, right? But if you're not sure, click on it. Lolo National Forest, U.S. Forest Service. That's the best way to figure out what something is on the map, be it like a rec point icon, be it a color, be it anything really, be it a trail. You can query those, and it'll tell you information on that.
Yeah, I think especially when you're kind of brand new or relearning the app, yeah, like you said, you get a lot of like, what's this color mean? What's this, all these kind of different, it's red dots. I don't know what this means. Click on it. Yeah, it'll bring up that information. And usually you can kind of figure it out from there.
Yeah.
And if for some reason you're not, I'm sorry, I guess we should say the ownership information, you're going to see that with your trial, during your trial, 7-day trial.
Yeah.
And then with the paid premium membership, you get access to one state. And with the elite, like Jack said, not only are you getting Canada, but access to all 50 states too. And those won't proactively add. We'll show how to add states here later.
That's another question we get. People sometimes say, hey, I just upgraded to elite. I can't see the data in other states. You do have to turn that on manually. I recommend not having all 50 states turned on at once. It's a lot of data.
Yeah, isn't a reason to have like Montana and Florida on at the same time.
Right. I'll typically have Montana on. I live here, I hunt here. I also hunt Minnesota quite a bit. So I will go down, just click that button, and you can see if I scroll back up to the top, those are the 2 states I have turned on. If I want to turn off Minnesota, because I'm not going to be hunting there until this fall, I turn it off and it'll disappear. So they're all listed here alphabetically. You just got to scroll down, turn on the ones you want. Then you'll see that information showing there. Couple other real quick, want to talk about a few different layer collections. So these here that are listed, current conditions, land and access, road trails and rec, trees, crops, cover, wildlife layers, those are national layers. So everybody gets these. These are not broken up by state. So that's a question we sometimes get is, hey, I'm trying to turn on the wildfire layer, but I don't see it under Montana. Where is it? It's not a state layer, it's nationwide. So it's in the current conditions layer. So that's one coming up here this summer. A lot of people are interested in because it'll be wildfire season. People want to see what's on fire. We don't have a ton right now, so I'm not going to try to find one on the map for you. What you'll see is a little icon that looks like a flame. And then if it's a big fire and it's defined, we have a perimeter for it. We will show like a red outline, a red polygon on the map of where that fire is burning. And so we'll also have, if you query it again, if you tap on the fire, it'll give you a name of the fire. If it's got a name, it will tell you how many acres it is, how contained it is. And then we also show you when the data source was last updated. So we ping the data source multiple times a day. I want to say it's like 4 times a day or 6 times a day. So we pull that data in and put it into the map, but they don't always update it as often as we do. So sometimes it's days in between updates from our data source. So we'll say, we last pinged the data source on February 9th. The data source last updated the data January 31st. So it's 9-10 days out of date. Things may be different. Things very likely are different, but that's kind of the best data we have on hand to show you what's going on with that fire. Couple other ones in there: drought data, air quality, couple CWD ones, smoke forecast.
Say precipitation radar is one that causes people some trouble sometimes,
Yes.
where that gets toggled on. And I talked to one gentleman, he's like, every time it rains, I can't see my map. That would be the reason.
Yeah, so if you're, and that's stepping out of current conditions, generally speaking, if you're looking at your map, you're like, why is it pink? Why is there this coloration over everything? 9 times out of 10,
Probably this guy.
10 times out of 10,
Yeah, about this.
it's a layer of some sort that's turned on. The CWD positive counties is going to turn your map like pink.
Yep.
If you're in a CWD positive county. Precipitation radar is going to have different colored squares over your map showing that precipitation. So that's the first thing to check, is to turn those off. Again, if you're not able to figure it out, help at onxmaps.com. We can take care of you. Another section I wanted to show here are the roads, trails, and rec. So the trails layer is what it sounds like. These are trails of all different sorts: hiking trails, horseback trails, mountain biking trails, motorized trails. That's going to show on there. You can turn on your trail slope and trail mileage.
Those are cool ones. I like those.
I'm going to turn on, we'll get to the motorized roads and trails in a bit. I'm just going to turn that on for now. But if I go to, let me get back to Missoula here. If I go over to the M Trail in Missoula, popular hiking spot, it's a good way to see the trail slope layer. That's what's giving it these different colors. If I didn't have that turned on, they'd just be black dotted lines. The slope layer goes on a gradient from green to red. So green is flat trails, red is steep, orange and yellow are in between. So you can kind of take a look and say, oh man, this trail here up the spine of Mount Sentinel, pretty steep.
Yeah.
If I want to climb up to the M, I might do this Z trail here, which still, I've done it a few times. It's steep enough for me, but it's orange, not quite as steep.
Right. That's one where I can at a glance go, I can take my kids on this. I can take my dad on this, you know, I'm not too worried. Yeah, looking for those the red ones. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that.
Right.
You know.
So, and you can use it both ways. You can say, I kind of want to stick to the greens and the yellows. Those are the ones I want to hike on. You might say, oh man, there's some red trails in here. That's probably going to keep some people out. Maybe that's where I want to go hunting.
Yeah, you're not going to see me.
You might see me.
You're lost.
It depends. Well,
Probably not. Because you use onX.
yeah, I use onX. I don't get lost. I may just have overestimated my abilities.
Yeah.
So that's the trail slope mileage. You can kind of see these dots here. That's going to give you between this dot and where's the other one? All the way over here, 0.9 miles if we hike that. So it gives you a sense of this segment is this long. You can kind of map out how long that hike is going to take. Let me zoom out. These purple lines, this is when I turned on the motorized roads and trails. I was just talking to somebody and they were like, man, I always got to go to the Forest Service and pull up their motor vehicle map to be able to tell where the motorized roads are and what the, you know, if it's open or closed. And I was like, do you have the motorized vehicle map that layer turned on onX? And he was like, that's a thing?
Right.
It's like, yes, it is. And it's awesome. So these are going to be on public lands, primarily Forest Service is where a lot of this data comes from. But what's neat about it, if I click on the trail or the road, it's going to tell me the name of it. It's going to tell me what vehicle is allowed on it. So this one, just about everything's allowed. You can drive your car on it if you wanted to. You might need four-wheel drive or a little bit higher clearance than a passenger car, but a pickup truck or something, dirt bike, ATV, all legal on this road. Some of them will have a width restriction where they'll say only ATVs less than, I think it's 50 inches, or just dirt bikes, depending on the kind of trail. Lets you know before you get there whether you can drive on it. It's also going to tell you when it's open. I used to get caught up with this all the time. I'd drive out and be like, man, I'm going to go hunting here, and it's closed.
Lock gate.
Lock gate.
Fun.
Because especially in a state like Montana, where we close a lot of our roads seasonally, and it actually coincides with hunting seasons a lot of times, especially in the fall, where a trail will be open. Sometimes they don't open it up until like bear hunting's closed in the spring, then they open it up. Or maybe it's they're waiting for elk to calve and for them to kind of do their thing in the spring, and then they allow motorized vehicles in there. A lot of times they close them when hunting season starts, just to kind of maybe provide a little bit more of a buffer for animals, or make it a little bit harder for people to go in there and chase after them. So this road's open May 16th through November 30th. That's basically November 30th. I think this year was when the hunting season closed. After the season closes, they shut it down to let the animals kind of recover and, do their thing going into winter. So make sure you check that before you head out so that you don't get all the way out there and get stopped by a lock gate.
Show them the tree cover stuff.
Yes. So there's a ton of layers in here. We're not gonna be able to get to all of them, but the trees, crops, and cover are pretty sweet. One that I always turn on in here is the timber cuts. That one is mostly on Forest Service land, is where we get that data from. Again, that's going to show you where logging has taken place. So it's going to tell you if it was a clear cut, if it was a trimming or a thinning, what kind it was, and what year it took place. So similar to our wildfire layer, these are two I use all the time, because anytime you have that canopy disruption, and it doesn't matter if you're in the West, if you're in northern Minnesota, if you're in Mississippi, that's going to allow fresh green growth on the forest floor to sprout and bloom. That's good feed for animals, be it turkeys, be it deer, be it elk, be it bears.
I think
Everything
those
loves
are
that stuff.
great layers, because, well, we're doing pretty good as a company. We don't own any satellites. So our satellite imagery comes from a third party. So having that ability to see, like, okay, it might not show like there's been some trim in here, but that layer will make you at least go, oh, okay, that's why I'm not seeing trees here. It got trimmed.
Right. So here's an example of the historic wildfire layer. This is the Lolo Peak fire from 2017. You can see it was a big fire. And that's going to show, again, if I click on it, it's going to tell me this part was Lolo National Forest. But if I scroll down, it gives me the name Lolo Peak, over 50,000 acres, 2017. So that's going to tell me that's getting old now. If I'm looking for morel mushrooms, at least in Montana, which I've never found one, but I've read about people who have found them. And they typically say the year, 2 years, maybe 3 years after the fire is like prime mushroom picking time. 6 years after, there's probably still mushrooms there, but there's probably better places to look that are a little more recent. Same thing, that's kind of, everybody knows elk and hunting burns now. It's almost become like everybody knows about it. It's not a secret. You hunt the year, a couple of years after a burn, depends how intensely it burns. This one burned pretty darn intense. You can still drive past, along Highway 12 here and look up and be like,
That was fire.
still pretty black.
Yeah.
A lot of black stumps and stuff sticking there, but it's coming back.
So you talked about driving. What do we do if we're going somewhere? I mean, we're not hunting here in the office, right?
Right.
So what do we do to get prepared for if I'm gonna go out somewhere?
Ooh.
Because I don't know about you, but I always crack up at this, because we had a lot of phone calls or emails where, well, I don't know where you go, but where I go, we don't have cell coverage.
Right. We don't have cell coverage in town here.
A lot of times, yeah.
But great segue, Tori. We're gonna go. I'm so blown away by that segue. I lost my train of thought. If you're gonna go hunting and you're in an area where there's okay cell service or no cell service, you need to save an offline map. That's along the bottom of my screen here. I click the offline map button and I'm just going to move my map. That's the wrong one. There we go. I'm going to move up north of town here and I click that new map button. Now this is, I'm going to get off the tribal land there. I'm going to move it over to the Forest Service. Let's say I want to go hunt this area. Whatever's within this red box is what's going to be saved. And remember, this is on an iPhone. Yours might look a little different if you're on an Android. Instead of saying 5 miles wide, 10 miles wide, 150, it's going to say low, medium, and high. Those are the different resolutions. Most of the time, what I use is the 10-mile map on my iPhone because a 5-mile map gives me a little bit better resolution, but not much. And that's 25 square miles. The 10-mile map is 4 times the size, 100 square miles.
Right.
That's good math. So I usually use those. I haven't found it to be a hindrance not having a little bit better imagery. Hasn't really, cost me an animal or made me get lost or anything. And then the 150-mile map, I will save these just to kind of have a backup. If I have a couple 10-mile maps saved and I go hunt it, especially if I'm like Eastern Montana, I'm hunting pronghorn. A lot of times that involves just a lot of driving, glassing, and bouncing around from place to place. Let's say
Plans change quickly for sure.
Let's say I check out all my spots and I'm like, man, there's nothing here, but I don't have a map saved of any of the other places. With that 150-mile, I've got roads, I've got property boundaries, I can see the public and private. So I'm not able to see the imagery as well, but at least I'll know where I can and cannot go. Keeps me legal, keeps me from getting lost. So I'll save 150-mile, basically covering my whole hunt unit or multiple units. And then I'm going to use those 10 miles to really, drill into areas I want to focus on.
And it's okay where, let's say, like I've done like a river trip where it's not going north and south, it's going east and west. So I just saved a map and then moved the map over, saved another one.
Yeah.
Because as you're traveling, your app is smart enough to know, okay, now we're on, we went from map A to map B.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like go in there and turn it on. It's going to turn itself on when you're in an area that doesn't have cell coverage.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hit save here. That's gonna start downloading the map. What I recommend is naming your map. If I expand here, you can see these are all the maps that I have saved on my account. You can see a lot of them just say map 8/1/22. That's the date and time it was saved. That doesn't really tell me where this map is. So if I want to go back and be like, man, do I have a map saved to this area? I might name it Unit 123, or I might name it Missoula, or name it after a landmark, whatever makes sense to you. You can see I have one here named Bob because that's in the Bob Marshall Wilderness. If I tap on that, it's going to bring me to that map here.
One thing too about saving maps is you want to do that. I mean, yes, our apps are going to work in areas that don't have cell coverage, but it does take some prior planning, right? So you're saving it here while you're at home, while you're at the office, while you got Wi-Fi. So this isn't something you're doing in the pickup when you're getting ready to go. You're doing this before Jack knows he's going to go on some camper trip in the Bob Marshall. He's going to say that here today before he gets out there.
Yeah. And so you see, I mentioned changing the name of the map. How you do that? If I go to the second one here, 1/19/23, I tap those 3 dots to the right. I tap edit. Now I can just rename it whatever I want. I'm just going to name this because it's over the office. I'm going to name it office. So now I have that saved. You can see if I scroll down, I lost it. Anyway, a couple of my maps you notice look different. Some of them have green boxes and some have like a candy cane or a barber pole box around it. Those green boxes, those are maps that are downloaded onto my device currently. The red and white candy stripe are maps that I had saved, but aren't on this device. There's a couple ways this could happen. Let's say my phone is running out of storage. onX, we don't limit you on how many maps you can save. I have over 200 on my personal account. because my phone has the space for it. If I run out of space, I might want to offload some of those. Like if I'm not going to an area for a while, I might pull that off.
Right, remove from device or just delete completely.
Yep, you can see here, I can remove from device. If I had another device, if I had a tablet that I was saving maps on, my account links between those two, and they're smart enough to know, hey, you saved these maps on this other device, but it's not going to save it onto this phone without me doing it manually. So you might see some of those. All you have to do, my Bob Marshall map here at the top, I can tap that down arrow and that's going to start downloading it. So that's another way you can check if your map's downloaded. All of these with the arrow, they're not on this device. If they have a green check mark, they are, and they're good to go.
Yeah, all those ones with the down arrow, that's going to be those candy cane stripe maps we saw.
Yep. And none of these maps say it right now, but you might go in and see some of them will say underneath the title, it'll say update available. What that means is something has changed in that area. Most commonly, it's going to be property owner information. It could be imagery. It could be a trail changed or something. Some data has changed. You don't have to update that every time. A lot of them you'll see just about every day they'll have an update available.
Right.
Because we're updating property that often. Do that when you get a chance. Do that when you're at home on Wi-Fi. Update them. It's not a big deal if you don't update them. At least I recommend doing it as often as you can. But if you're driving out and you pull up your map and you're like, oh man, it says update available. Your map's still going to work. You don't have to update it, especially if you're, about to lose service or something. Just go. Don't really worry about it. You're just going to have some piece of data in there that has changed. Most commonly, that's property owner name. Boundaries change less often than names do. It's not that big of a deal. If you've gone years without updating,
Time to update.
probably want to update. If you've gone months, but it's spring right now. If you're not hunting until September, you don't have to update until September. It's not, it's not a critical thing.
And we got like 15 minutes left. So
Before
before we get into tools,
yeah,
I would just say my way that I do it is when I save my map at home, scout, save to the device, or I make sure it's updated. Once I get in my rig, I get to my place, I'm going to drop a waypoint, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yep.
And then I'm going to put my phone into airplane mode. So I'm saving on battery. That way I can the location services go off satellite signal. So you'll be able to see that blue dot, even though you're in an area that doesn't have cell service. So put myself in airplane mode, do my adventures, and then I go home.
Yep. So speaking of waypoints, there's two ways you can mark a waypoint. I clicked on my toolbar here at the bottom, looks kind of like a Swiss Army knife. First way you can add a waypoint is by clicking this add waypoint button. And you can see that's just going to drop a generic waypoint in the middle of my map. I can still move it. All I'm doing is just clicking or tapping on the map. I've got this handy dandy mouse here so you can see where I'm moving here. On yours, just with your finger, tap it, and then you can save it. Again, I recommend changing the name. I still find waypoints that I marked in the heat of the moment where and it's a red X with the waypoint, the time, date and time.
I found what's this for?
Yeah, I found one from 2019 the other day. I'm like, I have no idea what this means.
Found a cool rock there once.
Right. Deleted it.
Yeah.
So give it a name. Cool rock. Why did I type it on my computer? Too many devices.
Cook rock.
Cook rock. Well,
Good enough.
yeah. Cool rock. I can change the icon. So we have almost 100 different
Got a
icons
bunch
to
different ones,
choose from here.
And that's something that we're still, adding on to.
Yep. So I'm going to say that's a hazard because the cool rock was in the middle of the road. Make it a hazard. I can change the color of it. I can put notes on it. We won't quite get into folders. That's a little bit more of a 201, but you could group it into a folder. You could add a picture to it. For now, I'm just going to save it. And man, right in the middle of Brook Street, there was a rock. We should tell the city. The other way to mark,
cool though.
right, it was cool. The other way to mark a waypoint is to go in and hit mark my location. So this is going to put a waypoint on my spot where I am. So that's one I use most of the time when I'm out in the field. So if I'm hunting, I'm hiking, and I come across a buck rub, mark my location, and then just like I did, I'm gonna click on it. I can go in and edit it, and I can change the icon and write buck rub and take a picture of it.
Yeah, for me, that's one of those that's like heat of the moment. I've been in the boat before and I look up, I'm like, oh man, I hope that's, public
Yeah.
access. Just drop a waypoint real quick with mark my location. And then a lot of times it's not.
Of course.
Yeah, so it is.
But this is another, kind of safety feature. I park the truck, mark that location, change the icon to a truck location, maybe change the color, whatever. And then I can navigate back to that when I'm done hunting for the
Right.
day. And question we get often is, if I delete my offline map, will I lose my waypoints?
Right.
Your waypoints and offline maps don't really interact at all. They're
That's what-
saved differently.
They're layers.
They're layers. So don't worry about, you can save waypoints if you don't have service, if you don't have offline maps saved, you can still save a waypoint. And if you have an offline map somewhere and you delete it, your waypoints are unaffected, doesn't matter at all. Other tools quickly here. Line distance. This one is cool for a number of uses. So it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little crosshair on my screen here. I can drop a point. I can move my map. I can drop another point, and it's going to tell me how far that is. So people will use this to outline their property if they want to see what the perimeter is, to like put up a fence. People will use this as a rangefinder. I've used it when I'm out in the mountains to be like, all right, I'm going to drop a line at my point, and then there's a bear over there. And I know where it is on my map because it's the only clear spot on the mountain. Everywhere else is trees, and this is an open meadow. Drop a waypoint or drop the other point there, and it's telling me it's 850 yards away. I'm not going to shoot 850 yards, but I'm saying, okay, I need to get 400 yards
Get there,
closer.
right.
We used it one time, guy shot a bear, and I knew how far it was with my rangefinder. So on my map, I drew it out, whoop, dropped a point about where it was, put my phone in compass mode and pointed it there and dropped the line. So we had a starting point because we were going to be tracking it in the dark. Everything looks different when you get over there.
Mhm.
And I'm bragging, but I was like 30 yards
Right
off.
on
It was
top.
pretty close.
That's cool.
All kinds of different uses for the line distance tool. On your computer, you can do a free draw where it's not just straight lines, but you can draw out,
Right.
trace a river,
Go around a pond.
trace a trail,
Yeah.
trace out, the roads you want to take. I've done that before. And again, you can edit these like every other waypoint, every other markup, change the color, change the style. Similar to this is, and it shows you the elevation profile once you save it, right in the middle of town, pretty flat in that parking lot.
Mhm.
But if you do it across mountains, you can see the up and down.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Pretty sweet to see. Last tool I want to touch on quick is the area shape tool. So very similar. Again, I can just click on the map, or I can use this drop point feature. Right now, I'm just going to highlight, do this kind of poor rectangle. Similar to line distance, a lot of people use this for like food plots. It's kind of a classic example. If I'm planting areas, I want to know, all right, how big is this area? I'm going to trace it out. And then I know how much seed I need to buy or how much fertilizer. I can change the colors. So some people will do, all right, these are all my wheat plots, whatever, and they're this color. These are all corn or brassicas, whatever I'm planting.
I talked to one dude who did a lot of shed hunting, and he would use that as kind of like, hey, I cleared this area. So he'd like
Yep.
draw that out when he was done. He's like, I know this is good.
Yep. All kinds of different areas you can use. Some people will do it based on, these are kind of our hunt areas. If
Mhm.
you're in an area and you stay in your spot, you stay in your spot, draw them out, everyone knows where they can go.
Right.
Speaking of shed hunting, it's something I don't do much, but a lot of
I
people
can't
do.
imagine the amount of sheds I've walked over.
Oh, it's probably a
It's-
lot.
It's probably like a huge thing around mushrooms right next to a huge, like, cool shed. 100%.
Oh, I'm sure you've seen that all the time on the mountains. I'm sure it happens all the time.
Yeah. Sitting there eating my sandwich is right behind me.
So, what?
Yeah.
So the tracker is super useful. What this does is if I click start here, that's going to start tracking where I go. So that's another safety feature where I do it when I leave the truck, track everywhere I go. And then at the end of the day, I can see how to get back because it laid a breadcrumb trail everywhere I went. You can do it when you're driving if you want, so that I've done it before just so I knew exactly what route to take to get in somewhere, because it's easy to figure like, oh, I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque, whatever.
Or is that, I mean, sometimes depending on the time of year, maybe it's really like marshy.
Yeah.
Like, man, I don't want to lose a boot walking through this,
Yeah, so you do the tracker and it's going to lay that trail down, and you can save that for future reference. People will do that shed hunting so they can see exactly where they walked and grid out a hillside. Use it for blood trailing, super awesome, where you can see exactly kind of the path that the animal took. I can still mark waypoints while I'm tracking, so I can mark where I found blood or where, an animal is eventually, whatever, where I find my arrow. I had one more example.
I use it like with Cub Scouts, where I know like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a cool hike. And I
Mhm.
want to do this again in the wintertime or in the summertime or with another group.
Yeah,
So it's always cool. That way you can just, kind of revisit that.
yeah. Yeah, and it is cool to just be like, man, I did 8 miles today.
Totally.
I did this much elevation. It's
Right.
kind of cool. Last thing on markups. Every markup can be shared. So if I tap on this waypoint here, the cool rock, I can scroll over and tap this share button, which I'm not going to because it's going to show all my contacts on there and they don't want that. But I could text this to Tori and be like, dude, there's a cool rock.
Yeah.
More often I'm going to do is like, hey, we made camp here. Park here. Let's meet up here in the morning. I got a dead elk down here. I need help dragging. Or if I'm a whitetail hunter and say, hey, go sit in this tree stand.
Right.
Here it is.
Yeah.
I
Duck
can-
blinds, whatever.
Anything you can think of, right? You can share. You can share tracks. If I want to say, hey, here's the route into the duck blind so you don't go up over your waders, follow this track in. Super, super handy. And then the nice thing is it's mine. So Tori can't like change the color of it or delete it. He could delete it from his map, but not from mine. And he can't share it with anybody else. So if I don't want him to tell everybody where this duck blind is, he can't really, right? He can't just go share it off.
Right.
I can revoke access if I'm like, he doesn't need to have access to that anymore. Pull it away. You can do that with all of your
Share
markups.
content.
Yeah. And you can share most commonly by text messages you can share them over Facebook, you can email them. It
Mhm.
just generates a link. You can copy and paste it wherever you want.
What's cool with that too is if Jack were to share it with me and I didn't have an account, it's going to take me to my app store where I would then be able to create a 7-day trial and that would show up in my content. So super awesome.
Yep. So I'm going to go to the web map here. We're kind of running up on time here, so we'll have to go kind of quick. But this is, if you go to onxmaps.com, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button that'll say open map. Click on that, click hunt map, put in the same email and password that you put in on your phone, has to be the same. That'll sync with your account and that'll pull up the map. You can see it looks very similar here. I'm going to refresh my screen because I just did some things on my phone. I made that area shape. I made that line. I dropped that waypoint. Hey, you can win a rifle or a mule deer hunt.
Cool.
We're going to skip that for now. And you can see all that stuff I just did on my phone is showing up here. If it's not showing for you, it might be like I just had, where I did a bunch of stuff on my phone, but my web map didn't sync up.
Or you
Refresh.
already had it open or yeah.
Right. And vice versa. Anything I do on this will sync over to my phone. So they talk to each other. You don't really have to do anything manually.
As long as you're signed in with the same email, same password, you're able to access on multiple devices. Jack's on his iPhone, he's on his computer, he could be on an Android tablet or an iPad. So as long as he's using the same email, same password, his content and access is going to be the same. Now, that's sometimes confusing because maybe as an elite user, you're looking at Minnesota on your phone,
Yeah.
and then you get on your computer and it's like, well, how come I'm not seeing the same stuff?
Mhm.
That won't sync. You would need to go in onto the layers on the computer to then put those, turn those layers on to match.
Yep. So my map layers menu on my computer is right up here. Works the same as it does on your phone. Looks very much similar. A couple things I wanted to mention on here. Your web map, obviously it's a bigger screen. So I use this for scouting a lot because I can see a lot more. And then my phone I use when I'm out in the field. So that's neat there. One thing I wanted to mention is our different base maps here that I can switch to. You can do the same thing on your phone. This button on your phone is right above your location button. If I click on it, I can see I have 3 different options for base maps. I have my satellite map, which is what you see here. Looks like Google Earth or other mapping programs that people are familiar with. Gives me the satellite view, but I'm not really able to see elevation changes, which some areas, maybe that doesn't matter. Where I deer hunt in northern Minnesota, I think I measured it out one time between topographic lines was like 1.5 miles. Like flat,
Yeah.
right? If I go to topo, then I can see those lines. We shade it a little bit too.
Mhm.
So you can easily tell how steep it is, where the elevation is, what's north facing slope, what's south facing slope. You know, that matters for bear hunting, for deer hunting, for all kinds of different stuff. What I use a lot of the time is the hybrid map. So this is kind of both of them put together. I've got the topo lines. You can see them in kind of this yellow brown here, this tan color. And then I also have my satellite imagery.
And this is a great spot too. You notice the dashed blue lines. That's going to mean that there could be water there. So it could be like seasonal runoff. So we get that question quite often of like,
Yeah.
what are these dashed blue lines? You'll see those on the hybrid, and that means there could be water there.
Yep, those are waterways. They might be just seasonal, like Tori said, snow melt in the spring. We get a bunch of rain. Otherwise, you know, late September, they might be dry. I believe they call those ephemeral streams.
I think you're right.
They're here one day and gone the next. I think.
I think you got it.
It's good vocabulary word.
It's a big one for me.
Lost my train of thought again. All right. Last thing on base maps, we're going to go real quick because this is a little bit beyond a 101, but we do have 3D. You have it on your phone as well. I think the big value of 3D is on your computer because you get that big screen and you can see it a lot better.
Get a scout, yeah.
Yeah, but as I move the map around, you can see, you know, because topo lines lie. You can look at it and be like, it doesn't look that steep.
It's like being a kid on the high dive.
Yeah, you climb up there and you're like,
wow,
I need an adult.
Right.
The 3D is still, I look at this and I'm like, it's not that steep, but I know this area and yeah, it's fairly steep. At least if I'm walking. Obviously there's much steeper areas, but you know, on a map, you can tell, all right, that's a little more than I want. I can zoom in.
I think it's super cool how our content, like you can see that area that's outlined, how it folds around the mountain too. Like it's really cool to be able to see that without having to be there.
Yeah. And all your waypoints and everything show in 3D as well. I just don't have any in this area.
If for some reason on the computer, if you're not seeing that satellite imagery, you know, being able to change at the bottom there, where you're not seeing the plus or the minus, it could be that you've zoomed in on your window. So in the address bar at the top right, there may be a plus minus or where you can reset it. And if you reset it, then that should go zoom back out where you're able to see your tools. And some contents lately where people have been like, man, I'm messing around with it and I can see the plus, but I can't zoom out.
Right. Last thing wanted to talk about today before we get to our giveaway. Actually, I'll see if Dan can post that giveaway link in the chat right now. But I wanted to talk about search. So this is another cool tool that we have. Dan doesn't have access to that. I'm going to ask Aaron to do that. He has access to that. Oversight on my part. He has the link for that. The search bar here. You have 2 different options to search. You can search for a location or you can search for a landowner. We'll start with landowner. If I'm going to type in, let's just go last name Smith. I get over 10,000 results. The more information you can give the map, the search, the better. So if I want to narrow it down to Jack Smith, hey, look, there's 6,800. It's better than 10,000.
Right.
And you'll notice that these are all, the top ones at least, are Montana people, then Idaho, Washington, Wyoming. The map or the search prioritizes results close to what you're viewing on the map. So if I was looking for a Jack Smith in Florida, I would want to zoom out and move my map to Florida. Then it's going to show those first. If I'm looking for somebody in Montana, probably going to keep it right where it is. If I want to find that property, all I have to do is click on that result and it's going to bring me there. So if you know a landowner's name or you're trying to find this place, maybe it's a outfitter, a lodge or something, or maybe it's just a family friend or somebody you have permission to hunt, you can search for it and find it right there really easy. Sometimes it's going to be Jack Smith. Sometimes it's going to be Smith Jack. Every county has their data stored differently. So it might be last name first or first name. And it shouldn't matter how you type it in. It should show you. Our search has kind of gotten more sophisticated over the years, but it is worth a shot if you're not finding the right thing to try flipping those around.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I want to look for a location, hey, Jack Smith Gulch. If I want to look for, I don't know, what do I want to look for, Tori?
Jack Smith Gulch.
Well, we just did that one. Let's go Glacier National Park. I can type that in and it's going to bring me to Glacier National Park. So location is for national parks. You can search for towns, you can search for counties.
Coordinates, if you know coordinates.
You can search coordinates. That's a big one. If somebody sends you, copy and paste off a GPS unit or something.
And I'd suggest, there could be a million first streets,
Right.
but there's only going to be one set of coordinates. Now, there are different types of coordinates out there. By default, it's going to go to decimal. That's just going to be the easiest way because entering in those coordinates is a lot easier. But if someone were to text you or email you, degrees, minutes, seconds, that's got the little degree sign and then parentheses and then the pound or no foot sign.
Mm-hmm.
You can copy and paste that. It's a little difficult to type that in,
Yep.
but you can copy and paste that pretty easy. That I've used that to share certain areas too. If I don't have a waypoint, I'll
Yep.
send that.
Yep. So I just typed in at random 45.12345 minus 101. In the Western Hemisphere, it's got to be minus.
Mhm.
If you just type in 101, that's going to bring you over to Asia.
So yeah.
If you type in 00, you're off the coast of Africa.
Yep.
That's a fun little trick there.
Mhm.
So that's how you search for coordinates, landowners, locations. You can search for mountaintops. All kinds of stuff.
One thing we didn't talk about is how no matter what you do, you really can't break this. So
Yes.
don't be afraid to go in there, turn things on and off, really kind of monkey with it. I feel for me, I worked here for a while and I had to not a while, it was a couple weeks, but I finally just sat down one weekend and turned all the layers on and off. It was okay, this is what this means.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what those yellow lines mean. Oh, that's what these red lines mean. So really, I'd suggest getting in there and you have any questions, email help@onxmaps.com will help you out. But don't be afraid to get in there and monkey with it.
Yeah. So couple other ways to learn. Our website has all kinds of tutorials on it. You can go to our help center there, read articles if you're more of a reader, if you like to learn that way. Our YouTube channel has a lot of demos on it. All of our old master classes are there. We've been going since, I think last March is when we kind of officially kicked off this program.
Yeah.
So we've got 70 some classes up there from.
We're on there a couple of times.
We're on there a few times. I've had them kind of pull down old ones because things change.
Yep.
But you'll be able to watch this one. We have, if you're looking for species specific, we have elk hunting master classes. We have pheasant hunting, grouse hunting, goose hunting, deer hunting, all kinds of different stuff in there. We're doing some turkey ones coming up and some application type stuff. So look for those. You can also, we mentioned it a number of times, our customer support center, help@onxmaps.com. You can also go to our website and do a live chat. We still have that, right?
Mhm.
So all kinds of ways to get a hold of us. I'm biased, Tori's biased. I think our customer support team is the best in the game. We've got a whole team of folks based here. Most of us are in Montana, but some folks around the country.
Mhm.
But you're going to find somebody who knows what they're talking about, is an outdoor person, is going to be able to help you figure out what you need to help out or what you need help with. And we answer every email within 24 business hours.
Mhm.
So if you email us tonight, you're going to get an answer tomorrow.
Yeah. And I hate the oh man, I've been dealing with this for months. If you're having issues, questions,
Yes.
shoot us an email, give us a phone call. We're happy to help. That's why we're here.
Mentioned it before, some of our upcoming master classes, you can go to that website there or just Google onX Hunt Master Classes. We should be the first one that shows up. And if you don't have an onX membership yet, you can save 30% off your first year by using the promo code app101. That is only valid on our website. Don't do it through the App Store or the Google Play Store. They don't accept discounts.
Right.
So they're going to charge you full price. You got to go to onxmaps.com. You can use that promo code there to save on your first year. And mentioned it before, but this is hat giveaway because we gave away a hat last time. We're giving away some shirts.
Oh, you can wear it as a hat.
Jack forgot to change the slide from last time.
All right.
We're giving away some of these topo tees. You can't buy these in our online store. We only kind of give these away. So the link is in the chat. You can go ahead and enter there. That is open until midnight tonight. I will email you personally tomorrow if you won. So customer support doesn't know who wins. Don't try emailing them. I'll shoot an email out to the 10 winners tomorrow, and we'll get those shirts sent out to everybody.
And if you're watching this on the recording, sorry.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We do giveaways at just about every masterclass. We've got some sweet ones we're giving away. I hear talk of potentially a shotgun in a future class. These 101s are, I'm going to be a little bit of a liar. They are monthly, except for next month, March. We have a pretty full schedule. So we're taking a break in March. We'll be back. I believe it's April 5th. We have a 101 scheduled. So if you want to watch this, watch us talk and crack jokes again, or have a hunting buddy who you're like, man, you don't know how to use onX. You need to school yourself up. You can either send them this recording or have them sign up for the next class.
Mhm.
With that, let me see if we had any questions that came in. Looks like we answered just about everything.
Perfect.
Anything
we
I'm
won.
forgetting?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. If you have any questions, shoot us an email, and we hope to catch you on a future class.